So you've had more than 600 pieces of music signed by six different companies. Uh, Great on that. What have you learned about dealing with the people at those companies? Do you have any tips that you could share as far as like etiquette? I mean, we get phone calls from library owners going, "Wow, one of your members went off on me today," or another member really didn't know how the industry works, and it's very frustrating because they expect a lot of handholding. Taxi has trained our members that we will hold your hands, but the industry won't, and there's definitely a wall there. Do you have any tips or suggestions for your fellow members that when you get that incredible email or incredible phone call saying we're interested in your music, give us some do's and don'ts?
Well, the etiquette that the libraries practice is being friendly uh, and making you feel like you've put your music in the right place. And the etiquette that composers should practice is likewise uh, making the library owner feel like they made a good choice. Right. And when they do take your music and they tell you, hey, this is great. We love this stuff. It's good. I've made this mistake twice, and uh, it's it's a pain. I really get a pain in my gut when I think about it. But don't reach out to them. I was coming off of those 291 tracks. I had also signed with another taxi library in Australia, and I was thinking to myself, I'm doing hard rock. Things go through your head. I was doing hard rock, and I'm thinking, maybe I better get more out there because it's not really one of the most popular genres. And I reached out to a library on my own, and I made the mistake of reaching out after I'd already signed an album of like 10 tracks. I made the mistake, and you had said this over and over again, and it just wasn't sinking in at that time. I was not, I was, I was in, I was in high gear, I guess.
Right. you got
Right,
over,
high gear. I was in high gear. It
you
was
got overly excited.
got overzealous,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
And
what was the mistake? What'd you do?
I asked the library if I could send more music. Not a good idea.
Which library? The library that you signed the 291 pieces with?
No, this was one that I had reached
Oh,
out to, and uh, not only did I do it that time, I done it again because I wasn't really putting two to two together, but reaching out like that. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have turned my phone
it's okay.
off.
We're all used to it. In the age of Zoom, I don't think any Zoom happens without a cell phone ringing. So your mistake was that you reached out to a library that you'd never done business with before. You were a total stranger to them, and you just cold called them and said, "Hey, can I send you music?"
Yes,
And
yes.
how did they react?
Oh, the first tracks, yeah, they loved it. They signed them, all of them. I sent 10, they signed 10. But
So
don't ask
what was the mistake? You reached out to them saying, "Can I send you
after
more?"
that.
versus
Yes.
versus waiting for them to say, "Hey, that stuff is really good, Dan. What else you got?"
And I'm not thinking, hey, they might want to try to get placements with these first 10 first,
Right.
before they come back to me for more music. And, so do not do that. It's a mistake, and it's not fun to have to deal with that. I've done that twice because I didn't get it the first time, And the second time, I started figuring out why uh, I was not hearing back from these places, and
So,
that's
I
not a
mean,
good thing at all.
did they totally ghost you from that point forever, or did you ever have a chance to mend the relationship?
I absolutely don't know, and I will not bother them anymore unless they want something from me. Because I don't want to burn the bridge. I may have already burned the bridge, but oof. And that's another reason why I don't like reaching out to these companies on my own, because it it's scary. It is scary to do that.
Yeah.
But I just felt compelled to do that, and not anymore. I learned my
Well,
lesson.
well, you
Yes.
did, but that's the important thing is that you did learn the lesson, and thank God you didn't reach out to 10 libraries that day, only a couple, and sooner or later when they need what you do well, they will reach back out to
I
you.
hope so. I hope so. The good people. Uh, but yeah, I just want you to know, don't reach out to them. You've said it over and over again, and I'll never do it again. So,
Yeah, they like working with people that are basically low maintenance. Oh, look at
right,
him.
right.
Dan makes good music. He's easy to do business with and he's a nice guy. What else you got, Dan, versus wow, that guy's called 3 times, pain in my butt.
Right.
There, anyway, eventually you'll hear back from them and if you don't, so you know what? You learned a lesson and you get to apply it to all the guys in the future, all the companies in the future, and so it served a
Right.
purpose.
Right.
Um, I noticed that you were in virtually every single one of the Quarantini happy hours. And for people who don't know what those are, as soon as the lockdown happened, when COVID first hit, right around March 23rd, I believe, of 2020, we decided to do Quarantini happy hours. My staff and I were all working remotely from home. Virtually everybody in the planet was working from home. And we were all isolated. It so happened that my wife was out of the country and got stuck out of the country, couldn't come home for a couple of months. But I was home alone in an empty house, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna hang out with my people, man. And I'd actually gotten a couple of emails from some members saying, I'm really distressed by this. I personally didn't get distressed by the lockdown, but I felt for the people who did. And so we started doing Quarantini happy hours, which was a daily 1 hour hang. We did regular taxi TV on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we would hang out for an hour.
Right.
And we'd talk
Right.
about anything from the gophers and coyotes in my backyard to the tomatoes I was growing. We talked a lot about the industry and making music. Most important thing in my estimation that happened was a group of 60 to 70 people that showed up virtually every day became like a family, became friends, and really
Oh,
got to know
yes.
each other. Um,
Yes.
so tell our viewers kind of it's hard for people who aren't part of taxi to understand the value of the taxi community of musicians. Can you explain that to them why it is so good and valuable?
Absolutely. Uh, because people get it. At least the people in our chat room in the Quarantini happy hour, they get it. Uh, nobody comes in with some kind of negative comment, and we're all supporting each other. And you're supporting us. We're getting to spend time with a famous producer.
Well, let's not get
Yes.
carried away, Dan.
The human side, we all, that is why we like you. That's why we like each other, because our humanity comes out in a chat room,
Yeah.
and we talk about music, talk about gophers, and it's just it's kind of inside, I guess, inside thing. But yeah, good people. Oh, I I appreciate that, Michael. That was such a good thing to do, and it helped me. I was going through a rough time there.
Yeah, a lot. I didn't get it at first because I was perfectly content. I missed my wife and I was frustrated that she couldn't come home. But I between my first marriage and my second marriage, I was a bachelor for a couple of years, so I know how to cook, I know how to clean, I know how to do laundry, and I really looked forward. I didn't mind being alone, but I got to say, I really looked forward to hanging out with you guys every day.
We
And
know
a
we
lot of times, I had to force myself to end the show after an hour. I really could have hung out endlessly, but I didn't want to overstay the
fun.
welcome. But
It's
yeah, it was awesome.
yeah, fun and laid back.
Yeah, and if we helped a few of our fellow members kind of cruise through the lockdown more easily and not feel lonely, or I don't know what
Right.
they were experiencing, but I'm guessing loneliness, and people were scared. We all thought, boy, walk outside, take a deep breath, might get this thing that could kill us. It turns out it wasn't as bad as the Black Plague maybe, but it was scary.
Fun times. Fun times.
Um, You've only been to the last two road rallies virtually. Do you think that there's any possibility you'll come to the road rally this coming November, which, if COVID remains kind of where it is now or even gets better, that we plan on doing it in person? Any chance I'll get to hang out with you there?
Not this year. I
Mhm.
take care of my elderly parents, and I just can't. My brother works, and my other brothers in North Carolina. No, I can't leave here.
All right. Well,
Responsibility.
you'll be
Yes.
missed because assuming that it does go forward and it is in person, one thing I definitely want to do is by kind of secret invite for the Insiders Club of Quarantini regulars.
I know.
I
I've heard
so
you talk
badly
about
want to,
that.
yeah, I want to get
Yeah,
everybody together just one night,
that
so
would
we
be
can
great.
all, yeah, toast each other for making it through a tough time. It is a family of people that never met each other than in a chat room, pretty
Right.
cool.
Right.
Um, I look forward to seeing you when you can make it. Um, have you collaborated with any of the fellow members that you've met in the chat room or in the forum or anything?
Uh, no, all my tracks are signed solely by me, and I think I need to keep it that way. I'm kind of headstrong. And yeah, well, I mean, I had to figure that out the hard way.
Yeah.
I had to figure out that I'm doing something that, you know, using samples for guitar is not everybody's bag. And so I've got to figure this out for myself. And uh, yeah, I would love to do some guitar parts for somebody here and there, collab in the future. But I needed to back off from that just for a while so I could figure out who I am in this business. And what I mean is the the pushing dials and the production of what I do, the samples takes a lot of time, and I'm
You
getting
do
the
it.
hang of it. Thank you.
Do
I
it so
appreciate that.
expertly, man.
Thank
Seriously,
you.
I was shocked in the beginning of this
Thank
conversation
you.
when you said it was all samples.
I
I didn't
appreciate
know that.
that.
Maybe somebody who uses a lot of guitar samples would be able to detect that quicker than I, but it sounded great. And the fact that
Thank you.
libraries are signing it, it says everything. So let's talk about engineering and production for a minute. I think that's a favorite subject for both of us. So I'm excited that we're at that part of the interview. Um, your bass and drums, I think, are enviable, and that so many people should pay attention to what you've done because when I came up in the industry, starting my career Criteria, it was all about getting great drum sounds, getting great bass sounds, and matching the best that were out there at the time. I think I've mentioned on the Quarantini happy hours that there were nights where we would all hang out after work in the mastering room at Criteria and listen to like Stevie Wonder records and go, or Paul McCartney records, and just whatever was the hot record at the time, and listen to the kick and the bass relationship. Um, People don't know, a lot of people don't seem to pay enough attention to those things, and it can really make a difference. And you've mastered it. How did you learn to do it so well?
Thank you. Uh, oh, just recently, Steve Barton, the man, uh, God bless the man. Yes, the quarantine, I mean, the road rally, the
Yeah.
virtual road rally this year, the man is just so comfortable talking about programming with MIDI. He does great work. He's excellent at what he does, the orchestral stuff to his, I think he's even, all his genres. But he knows about MIDI, and he's confident about talking about it. And
Hmm.
I love that. I love that because there's not a whole lot of people doing that. And I love it too. And he said, I don't like to humanize timing. And that just sent me back to my studio. And I
Wow.
realized, yes, I realized I was adding all these guitar parts, not to make things better and bigger. I was doing to cover up things. And really, what I needed to do was what he said: don't humanize the timing and make it work without doing that. And that got me where I am right now with the MIDI programming and the kick and the bass drum. I just learned that some Reaper MIDI plugins control. I got the kick velocity all the way up, and I leave it there. Uh, I've heard Ronan talk about if he had his druthers, he would have a kick sample uh, for the kick drum. And
Yeah.
yes, that kind of repetitive robotic thing is good for a kick drum. And so I have that velocity. This stuff I learned because of Steve Barden. You see, Steve Barden made that comment. I started to get into MIDI even more than I was when I
I'm
was.
shocked actually, because his comment that you're relaying here is contrary to what everybody else kind of said. Everybody else is like, yeah, cover up the fact that it's MIDI by adding humanity to the tracks, change the timing up a little bit. I don't frankly even understand why he said that he doesn't humanize. So how do you compensate for not humanizing in such a way that it doesn't sound over quantized and very robotic?
I had to figure it out, and after that road rally, that's what I planned on doing. He just made me feel so confident about programming MIDI that here's another guy that has the same problems I do with the MIDI programming, and so I went back and I what I do is, without getting too technical, I take the velocity scales and I break them down into either 8 sections or 16 sections. For drums, something that's real velocity sensitive, drum slate drums, addictive drums, I'll use the whole velocity scale starting with 1, go up to 127, but I'll have 16 sections, and I it is technical. It
It's
gets
okay.
technical.
For the people who are technically oriented, they'll really appreciate this. And for those who aren't, they'll have to learn.
Well, I take each kit piece. This is just for drums.
Yeah.
I take each kit piece and I make it legato to itself.
Wow.
So that gives me a note length for each kit piece. Then I've got I've got velocity. I've got a chart set up, formulas. I've got formulas because of this, and depending on the note length is where the velocity I program that kick piece at. Like a repetitive kick drum is going to be at a lower velocity than something like an AC/DC kick drum.
Right. Something that's
Yeah.
got an accent on it, coming into a measure or something. I get it. So, wow, I should have you write an article on how to do this for the newsletter
I
sometime.
would love to.
This is great information. In
I'd
all the
love
years
to.
I've been in the industry and all the people I've interviewed, you're the first one that has ever described this process to me. So, by using the velocity like that and taking advantage of the fact that you've got those variables, basically what you're doing by changing the note length and stuff, you are doing with what other people would do with compressors or EQ.
Right.
You're doing,
Exactly. Yes, I figured that out just recently.
wow.
That, yes, that I don't have to add so much compression now. And I may go back and remix what I'm doing nowadays. But yeah, right, exactly.
And are you doing the same thing for the snare drum, which also sounds like amazing to me?
These plugins that MIDI plugins, you can adjust the bottom end, or you can compress. All kinds of things you can do with velocity. And yeah, I just from doing over and over cover songs, over and over, doing them over again, and finding out why this song sounds, why the toms are too low in this song and they're fine in another. I figured out how to adjust the bottom end of those velocity scales. And yeah, I would love to write for you. I
Wow,
would love to,
I would
yes.
love to get that article from you. We'll talk about that after this interview because I'm so proud of you for figuring this stuff out. Because you know what?
Thank you.
A lot of people say, well, I use this tom tom. We had somebody the other day that asked a question on one of the taxi TVs. It's like, I use Steven Slate's most modern drums, but your screener said my stuff sounded dated. Well, that was my guess is it's probably the way this person was programming the parts, like doing 1984 turnarounds that don't
Right.
get used unless you're doing something retro. So what you're describing is what I learned using microphones and wires and equalizers and compressors, which is you could have the greatest tom tom sound in the world on its own when the drummer's going doom, 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 and you're sitting in the control room adjusting the EQ and the compression and level and everything. And
Right.
then if the song is in a key that's not complementary to that tom tom sound, you've got to
Yes.
recognize that and go, okay, the
Right.
bass is masking the tom toms. So there are variables that I need to mess with to solve that problem, and you've figured it out in MIDI. Good for you, man.
We have it easy, Michael. That's yeah, we have it easy in the digital world. It's I mean, I didn't mess with a whole lot of hardware back in the day, but the digital world is it's just so much. I can just common sense tells me it's so much easier.
What is your favorite kick drum sound like out of the box? Well, and I don't mean I'm just. What's your favorite go-to kick drum that you use on hard rock?
Well, lately, uh, I found some. Right now, I'm using slate drums and addictive drums together with the same MIDI file, being driven by the same MIDI file. And I found two metal kits. A metal kit in slate. I use thick metal kit. It has a great kick drum, Doesn't have a lot of the tick in it,
Hmm.
but it has a good punchy sound to it. And in the addictive drums, I'm using another metal kit, and I forget. I think it's some kind of thick metal from my metal library uh, that has a great tick sound in it. So the two complement each other. And along with the MIDI programming, I'm starting to figure this stuff out. And uh, yeah, the the I don't have to add as much compression when I control the velocity
So
like I'm
basically,
doing.
you just use your MIDI to trigger those two drums simultaneously, and then find the blend between them that gives you
Right.
the desired sound.
And another thing is that those two drum sets may be set up differently. The round robins that's going from one sample to the next, so it doesn't sound robotic. It may have several samples for one velocity layer in a kick drum, and those they may be set up differently. One may have three uh, round robins, the other may have four or five or whatever, and that complement each other to sound more realistic because you won't get the same kick drum sound every time. Uh, but
Wow,
yeah,
amazing! And how do you get your bass guitar sound?
the bass guitar is Pettenhouse direct bass samples, along with mutes, palm mute samples. I I always do that with my guitar and bass is use palm mute samples at the lower end of the velocity scale and open notes at the top end.
Wow,
Yes, and it's
brilliant
a
stuff. I mean, maybe everybody knows this and I'm just unaware of it, but you're the first person I've interviewed that's ever actually described this.
I
Makes
appreciate
perfect
it,
sense
Michael.
because you want the bottom to sound chunky, fat, and solid, so you palm mute it, but
Right,
you want to get a little bit of the openness of the ring on the top end. So
right.
most people would just treat it's as one thing. Either you palm mute it or it's open, and you're analyzing kind of the EQ curve of the song or of the note
Yes,
and
yes.
treating them differently within one note. That's brilliant.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Michael.
Well, man, that last 5 minutes of the interview is spectacular stuff. Not that I didn't enjoy the whole thing, but that, like I said, first time in my
They,
career anybody's ever laid that out. So,
they don't let me out of the box much, so I love talking about this stuff. So,
well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm really
thank you.
grateful
Pleasure
to have you
speaking
as
with
a
you.
member and proud of your accomplishments and maybe more than anything, I'm really happy that you've made these connections with your fellow members in the chat rooms and become a celebrity within your own right in the chat rooms. Everybody really, I could tell they all enjoy knowing you and you enjoy knowing them, and just really happy for you.
And thank you.
Uh, my pleasure, man. You make you make my job more fun than it probably should be. Well, with that, I've got to say goodbye because we're going to run out of time on our Zoom here shortly. But Dan, thank you for taking the time to do this and continued best of luck to you. Um,
Thank you.
and next time I talk to our mutual friend in Israel, I'm going to send him a link to this interview so he can watch it. He'll be
Great.
happy for
Great.
you as well. Any final thoughts for any of your fellow members or people thinking about joining Taxi? Anything at all?
Yeah. Just stay positive. It's a rough road. It can be a rough road.
Yeah.
Stay positive.
Oh, that's great advice. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan Weber.
Thank you.